Well, hello everybody. Thank you for coming on to our first joint webinar alongside a long-standing partner and friend of Mission Control, Nick Panther, who works with Simplicity Plus. Yeah, no, we're excited to kind of have a little bit more of a change of direction today for the webinar. We'll be focusing on kind of one feature, one attribute, one object in particular within mission control that Nick kind of takes close to heart, and he'll be kind of bringing you his perspective of the benefits of using the program management feature within mission control and also give you kind of, let's say, his insights into mission control as well. I guess with that being said, Nick, could you change the slide? There you go. So just kind of let's give you quick introductions. My name is Julian. I'm an account executive here at Mission Control. I manage American West, so think of Central, Eastern, and all of Europe. And I am more than happy to spread the gospel of mission control in terms of acting as an account executive, acting as an SE, and also helping people interact with the right resources, both kind of collateral and human-wise, within mission control to help people make the informed decision on if we and how we can help your business. I'll let Nick do a quick introduction of himself.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Panther. As you see there, I'm the CTO, the Technology Officer and Delivery Officer for a partner called Simplicity Plus, based out of Ottawa, Canada. So I apologize right now. I will say words like project or schedule, just comes with the passport. And yeah, I've been doing Salesforce and PSA projects and mission control for longer than I like to admit.
Well, fantastic. So look, in terms of today's agenda, I'm just going to kind of let you know what I'll be speaking to, and then maybe a little quick highlight of Nick. So I'll be giving a quick overview, high level of mission control, and then basically what I'll be doing is handing the mic over to Nick and let him do my job for me and kind of lead the webinar today because he'll be having his own insights, his own perspective on best practices using mission control, specifically within the program management side. So I think we'll be having a richer discussion given his body of knowledge. Next. So a quick history of mission control in terms of our background. Mission control has been on the App Exchange for just over 12 years. I think we just recently hit 13 years. Our solution, our CTO and our CEO are actually the founders, meaning no part of our solution has ever been acquired or Frankenstein together, which leads to a very palatable and comprehensive UX where there's continuity within the system. It's easy to approach mission control and scale with it over time. We're technically a PSA, so we really marry the ideas of project management, resource management, and time and execution. But we go a little bit further than that, and we're always happy to help users kind of grow with our system. And as we are, let's say, the first users of mission control, so we use our tool to run our full business. We're more than happy to share insights in terms of how we use it and how companies within different verticals might use it as well. So quick high level of what you'll be seeing today. In terms of mission control, we're native to Salesforce, meaning there's no separation between mission control and your Salesforce instance. Think of us as a series of custom objects that live in your environment, where every data point you'll be seeing today, every record can be reported on within native Salesforce reporting. Just think of us as a layer of project management on top of your current instance. Everything works out of the box. What I mean by that is we give you our full solution. We're not trying to upsell you features over time. The idea is we want this to be a scalable solution for your business. And if you don't need to use everything on kind of phase one on the MVP, don't use it. Hide whatever objects or features that you don't need. And then the idea is you have them when you are ready to use them. And it's very scalable to go from 10 to 10,000 users. No implementation required. Well, I think that's a little bit more aligned with very easy to use and kind of get started, as we are a managed package off the App Exchange. So strictly going by the App Exchange, clicking the Get a Now button, you will download our package into your environment. Then with just very simple configuration alongside Nick or our internal team, you'd be able to get up and running within, well, I don't want to say minutes, let's say hours or even a couple of days. We have amazing online collateral. If you go on our support online, you can see that basically our amazing support team, which is based all over the world, literally, have built in-depth collateral that speaks to every project management process, every object feature, and even kind of we have a user guide for getting started to kind of make it as easy as possible to get started with Mission Control. In terms of some logos we work with, we work with a lot of industry leaders in a few different spaces, verticals. We're always happy to share our case studies, and there's a few logos I'd love to share, but NDA says I can't. But we work with a lot of industry leaders, and we're always happy to kind of, let's say, kind of introduce, if the time is right, to introduce you to the people that might help make your decision a little bit easier. So in terms of features and functionalities, I think it would be a benefit to no one if we were to go through everything here today. And typically, I would kind of go through on these webinars. Typically, I'd go through a little bit of a linear approach, a user guide to using Mission Control. But today, what we'll be doing is focusing on the program management side, where Nick loves our feature and kind of say is a champion, is a evangelist of specifically our program management side of things. And curious to see kind of how he would approach leveraging those features. But if there's anything here that really jumps out at you and you'd love to have a little bit more information on, or even like a personalized walkthrough, feel free to reach out to me directly or even Nick. And we could definitely make that happen and really kind of shed any light on any feature or object structure that might be important for you. So in terms of a typical sales cycle with Mission Control, typically we do a little bit of discovery, better understand your goals, objectives, requirements, so that we can walk you through a personalized demo of your use cases that really are specific to your business and your needs. With that being said, that's all within the Are We a Fit phase. Then there is the product evaluation phase, where we are very open and really will even kind of propose that you download our package into your environment, either in Sandbox or production, and actually use us for 14 days, where we could run workshops, we could answer any questions. You'll always have access to our support email, and we want you to know that this is the right tool before making any decisions. So we're always happy to. We're very flexible in terms of making sure we follow a path that's respectful of your time and your needs. With that being said, I'll pass the mic over to Nick and let him do his thing.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Julian. Hello, everyone, again. My name is Nick. Please let me know if I start talking too fast. I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm one of those people that when I get excited about things, I start talking quickly. However, just a quick sub-agenda. We're going to do a really quick intro to the company that I am part of, and then we're really going to get into the meat and potatoes. Quickly talk about project hierarchy. We're going to set the scenario and try and keep the slides to a minimum. So who is Simplicity Plus? We are a Salesforce and Mission Control consulting partner. We were founded in 2000 as RDP, and last year we went through a rebrand where we moved to the name Simplicity Plus. Really, our founding mantra here is crawl, walk, run. If I had a nickel for every time that I said crawl, walk, run to clients and prospects and people in the ecosystem, I'd probably be able to buy even more coffee. But it's something that we truly believe in. Big bang implementations, all of us probably have similar feelings as to how stressful and how hard those can be. So let's jump right into it. And really what I want to start with is the 7-layer project hierarchy with Mission Control. And quickly, I'm sorry. I've been on many webinars. I hate when there's a lot of information on one slide, but I think this one's important. So I apologize for having this much information on one slide. But to go through this quickly, we all know mission control and projects. And projects have milestones, milestones have actions, actions have checklist items. But there is 7 layers to the whole hierarchy, and it starts with the portfolio. So depending on how you want to break out your projects, your endeavors, you can have it right from a strategic portfolio down to a collection for a common objective through projects, phases, milestones, actions, and checklist items. If you would like, please take a screen grab of this, or I can send it to you. This is just showing the scope and the purpose for each. And something to remember, crawl, walk, run, you do not need to implement all 7 layers to start your journey with mission control. Basic project management can be completed by using projects, milestones, and actions. However, when we're talking about what we want to talk about today, we really need to start looking at the program object. So I'm going to set the scenario here. As you saw in the introduction, I've been doing Salesforce for plus 2 decades now. And before that, I worked with a very large company called EDS that did government implementations here in Canada. So I've been doing consulting a long time. And things that I've noticed on projects that I've been a member of, one of the things that always is fun is you've gone through, you've created your requirements, you've created your user stories, you've gone through the whole rigmarole and process of getting those done. Now where do you put them so that people can have the information? Or have you ever been added to a project where you're going to work on something specific? Case in point, I'm working on a Salesforce implementation and I get brought in to create a screen flow. Well, how do I know that what I'm doing? And typically you'll get the action in mission control so that you can put your time against it. Where do you go to find the context of what you're working for? It's always fun to try and figure out and understand those requirements. And how do you collaborate with team members? There's so many different ways to collaborate these days. We have Slack or Teams, we have email, Zoom that we're on right now, all sorts of different ways. But how do we track that and how do we keep a collection of what's happening so that that current and common understanding of a project can continue to be driven? So one of the things that isn't going to be part of this scenario is I'm not going to talk about, or I'm not going to get into creating the actual requirements or user stories. That in itself could be its own webinar. If you're interested in more information about that, PMI, the Project Management Institute, has good courses on it, as does the IIBA, the International Institute of Business Analysts. And one of the things I always tell people who are working on that is if you've never heard of the BABOK, the Business Analyst Book of Knowledge, it's something you should likely look into. But we're going to talk about actually keeping track of these so that you have that context through the whole project. And to do that, I want to talk about myth versus reality. So we know that mission control, which we all know and love and use within our organizations, that is our project management tool. Now, what typically happens is we create all these requirements, we create all these user stories, and now we're going to get into the reality. Some people that I've spoken with don't even know that there's the program object and you can store requirements and all that within mission control, or they have an organization where there's another tool that they need to use. So all of a sudden we have mission control for our project management, our actions, our time logs, but now Jira is where we're keeping track of our user stories, our defects, all the work efforts. So going back to that scenario that I set up, I'm being brought onto a project to work on a screen flow. I know I can go to Jira to see the user story. One of the things that I've noticed is that other people who have been on the project, well, they want more granular work efforts than Jira can allow. So all of a sudden we've added in another program like Asana or Trello. So Jira I can go to for the user story, Asana and Trello I go to so I get more of a to-do list, which will still link up to an action that I'm working with in Mission Control. But even further than that, now we get into subtasks, and what I've seen a lot of times is that people are now creating trackers using Excel or Google Docs. So out of one action, and I'm talking from experience here, this has happened to me on projects, all of a sudden I have 4 different areas that I'm looking at, which leads me to usually have to ping a project manager, whether it be Teams or Slack, and go, hey, can I get a little bit more context? Can I get the down and dirty on what I'm actually working on? And they think that's a great idea. However, they're the project manager, the business analyst, and the senior consultant, the architect may be somewhere else. So now we have a meeting to go through it. One of the things that comes out of those meetings is, yes, I finally have the full perspective from all these different applications and all these different areas where we have pieces of the puzzle for the action that I'm working on. However, after that meeting, the project manager realizes, yeah, that's probably good to have all this tracked, and so now we're adding in Confluence or Google Docs so that we can start keeping track of where everything is. Like I said, this is one action. Mission Control is driving my timesheets. I know what the action is, and I've had to go through one or all of these applications so that I can get the context of what I'm working on. Now, I am not being negative about any of these applications. They're great applications. They do things well for what they do. But when you start adding in disparate systems into your work efforts, it can be very challenging. But what if I told you Mission Control could actually do this all for you? And that's really what I want to work on today and what I want to talk with you about. So now, instead of looking at slides, I'm going to go right into Mission Control, and we're going to talk about how programs, requirements, and user stories can drive any details. So I'm going to stop the share, and then I'm going to share my other screen here. I'll check really quickly. Julian, are there any questions that people have asked so far?
Nothing specific, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A. If something I can answer quickly, I'll definitely like the two I can just answer directly. But if there's anything you need me to interrupt, Nick, I will gladly interrupt this flow so we could answer your questions directly.
Excellent. Well, if there's no questions, let's get right into Mission Control. So this is, you are probably used to logging in and seeing the actual console. One of the things I always love to do is actually make a home tab with the console within it, so I can put other things within the system, such as this little component that has links to the user guide, knowledge base, all the fun things that Aprika does with Mission Control for us. But as I talked about, in this scenario, we know that we have requirements and we have user stories that are based around a project or projects that we're going to work on. So we'll go into that program right here, the program object within Mission Control. And this is for one of our clients. We've named them Neighborhood Nonprofit. Here we can state all of the different details and informations around certain projects, such as what are the objectives. This is not a project level objective. This is more of an objective higher scale. What do they want to do overall? So we can make notes on objectives and program notes. You see here that I fold the different areas within the page layout that I don't need, but with programs, you can get all of the different, like, what scheduled hours do you have on all the projects, and you can break down all of the different values and costs based around that as well. I just use standard Salesforce capabilities so that I can keep those closed. You'll also notice here we have 2 different projects set up. We have one here called the intake process and another one called donation management. Now we know that donation management is likely going to start in Q3 or Q4. Really, we're going to focus on this one project that we have. Now, whether your project be agile or waterfall or hybrid, you're always going to have a good sense of what you're working on based around what the requirements are at that time. We've done this with the intake process, and you can see here we have personas and requirements on the side. Let's talk about those really quickly. Personas, we're building user stories, and the personas are the different people that will be utilizing the system, and we're building the user stories around those. We have two different types of user stories. We have the typical functional as a, I want to so that. And we've all created user stories before. We can use these different personas so that as we go through the system, we know which one we're looking at. Now, something we do so that we can have technical user stories is one of the personas is actually the Salesforce consultant. That is our internal person or resources who are working on your project. We'll get more into that and how it feeds into the user stories in a moment, but that is our personas. Very important that you build those out so that when you're working through the requirements, you can now figure out who's actually going to be doing what here. From there, we get into the meat and potatoes of what I really want to talk about, which is those requirements. Now, as I said, we're not going to get into building these. We've already gone through meeting the client, getting a high level, and working down as far as we can so that we can create a backlog. And here we have three different requirements: an account and contact configuration, case object, and a web to case. I'm just going to go into one of these so you can see what a requirement looks like. Here, links definitely to a program. You have different statuses, delivery statuses. You can give priorities. Categories, this is where we feed whether something is functional or technical. Once again, a functional user story is more of those traditional user stories, you know. A technical user story is, as the consultant, I need to do something. And we'll go into that in the user stories in a moment. You'll also notice here we have the sort order. You can set sort orders on your project for actions. Just like the projects, you can actually set what the requirements are going to be like. And now we get into pain points and the requirement notes. Now, one thing I want to note really quickly, this is all standard within Salesforce or within Mission Control. I have not created any custom fields here. So the pain points, we give an overview of what the requirement is. We know what we want to do with it. And then those requirement notes, this breaks out the actual efforts that we're going to do for this overall requirement. Here we've broken it out, and you can see these are all Salesforce functions. So if I get an action within Salesforce, I'm going to know exactly what I need to do. Will you have it this detailed to begin with? Most likely not. When you're creating those requirements, we'll talk about that in a moment, it may just simply be the title. I know I need to do account and contact configuration. So as you work through each of these issues, you can build more of your requirement notes. Now from there, we also build the user stories, because the user stories are going to drive the actual actions within a project, the efforts that people will take on the project itself. I'll stop here before I go into that. Is there any questions, Julian? Just simply because I can't see.
Nothing particular. I think someone asked, is there kind of say a project request business case feature where people can submit ideas and requests? I think that maybe goes outside the scope of today's call, and
Yeah, well, it does and it doesn't, and we'll talk about that really quickly. Requirements, as you see here, this requirement, it's the categories we have are both functional and technical. What I have done so that we have requests in there as well is you can create a different categorization. So somebody, just to make one up on this one, we want to have integration with our Google Calendar. Well, you can actually put in a request, drive the pain notes, the requirement notes. Now you get into the recommendations and benefits. So you can use requirements for that specific feature set or requirement building.
I think we have one more question, but it's a little bit more high level. That will probably make more sense at the end of the demo. So
Perfect.
yeah.
Excellent. So what we can see here is we've built a requirement out. This is around account and contact configuration. And now we've created two different user stories here. I'll go into the first one here. You can see that this user story is, as the Salesforce consultant, I want to enable person accounts to allow clients to be in the system as a person and have the traditional account contract breakout for schools and service providers. We have taken the acceptance criteria as the configuration that needs to occur, because for this user story to be complete, to be accepted, this has to happen. Now you will notice what we've built on the requirement here will actually be within the user story, but the user story will be a breakout, a section of what those full requirement stories are. This allows us, and with technical, the other thing that I'll point out is that with our technical user stories internally, we don't use the so that I can portion. That is more for functional. We know that in this case, we may say that educational institutions, I want to be able to put a intake request in so that I can quickly and efficiently allow this nonprofit to know that a student needs assistance. There's no real so that I can with a technical in our use case. The so that I can is so that I can complete and fulfill the requirements of this action. Now, a few things I will note here. On the previous page with requirements, I stated that I hadn't done any changes to the system. On the user story I have, it still uses the 2 columns out of the box. Because these fields are rich text fields, they're long text fields, I always like to break out the page so that those rich text fields are across the whole column. Mission control, one of the joys of mission control is for user stories, programs, requirements, anything you have, you can change the look and the feel based around what you need to do. If there's specific fields or if there's specific business sets, such as putting requests in as a requirement, you can do that by adding to a pick list field or creating your own custom fields, plus actually changing your page layouts here as well. So we've gone through and we've created requirements and we've created user stories. That's perfect. So what do I do with that? Let's say we've built out all the different requirements and user stories that we need so that we can actually complete a project. We do that from what we call on the program the actual program planner. Now there are 2 ways that you can get to the planner. First, you can have a tab right on the program so that it brings it up. The other thing, and I always like to show people this, maybe you log in and you know what you're going to be working on. You can get there from the console by going to the Manage pad and then simply choosing your program that you want to work on from the actual console and then click on View Panel. And that will bring the information over to you. Now, what does the program planner allow you to do? First off, you can see all of the information that you've built so far. Here we can see we have the 3 requirements, and you'll notice here that we have a little person with 4 beside it. That's because we have 4 user stories. We also have some flags, the chatter here. If we want to see more information, of course, we click on the eyeball. This allows us to bring up a pop-up. It will show us all the information that we have on the project. Just like before, you can close it in and out depending on how your page layouts are broken out. You can also go and see all of your different user stories. So here we can see that we've identified 4 different user stories. All of the acceptance criteria is there. It allows us to see what we need to do. Now, the first 2 that you'll see in this Kanban is, of course, your backlog and priority backlog. These are standard to every program you create. You'll always have a backlog and a priority backlog. The thing I like about that is everything goes into a backlog. However, not all backlog items are equal to each other. If there's something that is more important, typically projects will have much more than 3 requirements, but you can actually just drag over a requirement and put it into the priority backlog. So let's say you're working 3 weeks from now, you've done a sprint, you've gone through your retrospective, and now you want to build out what's next. You can actually see what's in your priority backlog before. And it does give you some information up at the top on how many requirements, user stories, and how many hours have you put into your effort. Now, these two here are the actual projects that we had on the program. So if you have multiple projects going at one time, we do Salesforce implementations. So say I have a client who we're working on a sales cloud, a marketing cloud, Pardot, or whatever marketing cloud account, we'll call it Pardot, shall we? Pardot implementation and a mission control implementation. For that program, I'm going to have all my requirements within that program. Some of them may be for one or two of them. I'm going to be able to see all those projects at once so I can move over the requirements as required. But as I said before, we know that we've created these requirements, we know we've created these user stories, we have as much context on the actual records as we can think of. We want to move these in so that people can start to, the project managers can take that from the project and actually start working through assigning those to resources and actually getting the work efforts done. And how you do that is very simply, you just drag and drop your requirements into this process, into the project that you want to put them into. And that's as simple as it is for moving requirements from your program to a specific project. Up here up top, you'll see that there's a few different icons. The first one here, you can go to the project overview, and then you can actually go right to the project builder. But we're going to go to the project here for a second. Now that we've moved those requirements and user stories in, here we get the page that shows us the typical information that we have. We can see that we have no hours scheduled. We have nothing on this project right now because honestly, we've just put some requirements in. You can see the requirements from your related lists. You'll notice here I have set a milestone for called project backlog. Quickly, there is a Cosmo campfire on the new sprint boards and sprint functionality within Mission Control that happens this evening for those of us in North America, and tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon for those in Asia Pacific. If you have not signed up for that, please do so. That's the next step with what I'm doing and talking about here. So it's important that you take a look at it. And personally, I think it's like a fantastic feature. However, here you can see we have our requirements. Everything's been now associated to the project. And if we go back to here, we can see that while we have those requirements, nothing has actually been built out as of yet. To do that, we get to use another page within Mission Control called the Project Builder. Now you can put it in as a tab once again, or the drop-down. I always like to show people where to get it from the storyboard or from the console, because if you're logging in first thing in the day, instead of having to click through different places, you can use your console and go right here. And we're simply going to go to that intake process and start the view builder. Our project builder allows us to take requirements and start putting them towards milestones and build out actions. Right here, you can see, just like I showed you on the project, we have our project backlog. The effort is 0 because there's nothing in there right now. We saw there was nothing on the project. But how we build that out, once again, it's drag and drop functionality. We can take our user stories or our requirements and build actions right out of it. Now, how do you change it? You can build straight from a requirement. Sometimes you will want a little bit more higher level what the actual action is going to be. For those of you who use checklist items, you can do that. And for those, you can build the checklist items right from the requirement itself. Or you can actually build the user stories to actions as well. And simply, as we're starting to work, let's say we're going through and we're going to build out what the next sprint is. if we know that we want to work on the case object, all we have to do is simply take and drag and drop. And of course, things are going to circle for me because I'm giving a presentation. This is typically pretty quick, but that's all we have to do. And now, as we continue to slide over, we can slide all of these and start to build out our actions. Not the funnest thing to watch, but that's as easy as it is. Now, one of the reasons why I like to use the user stories is actions, of course, will have that effort associated to it. When you use the user story and you give an effort for that user story, it actually builds that right into the actions. So I'm going to take this last one, and now we've got about 15 and a half hours worth of effort within our project backlog. If we had other user stories that we wanted to build in, or if we had requirements, we could do that, but we've now moved everything over. The other thing that I'll let you know about really quickly is you can filter. Typically speaking, you'll have a lot of requirements, a lot of user stories in there. One of the things that I always like to show people is, because we have both functional and technical on our projects, if we want to just see those technical ones so that we can build from there, you can actually filter right from here. You can filter right by priority as well. So that filtering functionality is within this page. But what we've done is, after we built those requirements, now that we have the user stories built, we've actually used that information to populate right into our project. Now, just like with the program builder, you'll see that we can actually, we have these two up here. We can go right to an overview, or we can go back to the planner. We're going to go to the overview because one of the things I want to show you is right off the top, you start to build out the hours that are being worked on the project. So you don't have any double entry, you don't have to worry about what the process was. And if we go to our action pad, we can see here that all of the different user stories that we've built out are here within the system, and they're set with the actual hours that we scheduled based off of the level of effort from that user story. They're also all associated to the project backlog milestone. As I said, with milestones and with the ability to put actual sprints within the system, you have a new sprint board. Today's Cosmo or tomorrow's Cosmo, depending on where you are in the world, this is going to allow you to actually start to build out sprints based off of what is in this project backlog milestone. One last thing I'm going to touch on as I go back to this project is one of the things that I do like about using this process so that we have all of our requirements, all of our user stories in one place. Of course, if we highlight this one, you've got the action detail. You can see the user story information. One of the things I also like about the action is if I'm brought in on this project, I'm going to be working on this, I can actually see the user story. If we scroll down through all the information that we have here, I can see the actual user story right from the action. So I know what I have to do. All of the acceptance criteria is here within one page. And for those who are using the chatter functionality, if I want to ask something to anyone, I can actually go into here. I can make a chatter conversation. One of the things that I've seen other people utilize is putting actual Slack to project integrations, so that if you're using Slack, now instead of chatter, you can use those Slack functionalities. So that, and I'm just looking at time, that is what I want to show you. Really, it's allowing you to build those requirements and user stories right within your mission control application, so you don't have to worry about having it in multiple places, whether it be Jira or Trello or a Google Sheet or all three. It's right there within mission control, so it allows you to build that. And you can use those user stories to build the actions right on a project. Those user stories and all the information you have is available, and it gives that contextual view that your resources are going to require. The next step, of course, would be putting these actions towards a sprint or towards an actual milestone if you're not sprint-based, so that you can put time and effort against them. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a second and then go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Julian, can everyone see this now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Perfect. So 4 little tips and tricks for you. First, make it your own. What you saw was pretty much out of the box. But like I was saying, use the power of Salesforce to make it your own. If you have certain business processes that you follow, create fields for it, especially for any of those company or organization specific KPIs. One of the things that I actually create is all of the user stories go in as identified. I have a screen flow that actually allows you to see all of the user stories for a specific requirement, and by using that screen flow you can check off all or some of them and set them to approved. We will not put any non-approved user stories into projects internally. The other thing, the second one is sharing the responsibility. And I'm going to point out the question I had about can we use requirements for business cases or ideas of what to do next. I love that idea. Don't lock down programs and requirements. If one of your resources hears that there's a requirement from the client or internally, put that in to your backlogs, and it just allows you to have a better buildup of those requirements within your backlog because you have multiple points of view. Thirdly, link with your agile process. Like I said, there's the Cosmo Campfire. It will be this evening. I believe it's 7 p.m. Eastern, so it'll be 4 p.m. Pacific if you're in North America. If you have not signed up for that campfire yet, Julian, maybe you can put the URL out for everyone, but please sign up for it. The whole Agile Sprint Board functionality that Mission Control just released is amazing and something that I've been looking forward to using. And last but not least, crawl, walk, run. You don't have to do everything and have everything picture perfect before you start using it. In my experience, using that sprint-based concept, perpetual innovation, starting with the core and then adding and adding, it doesn't take longer to implement something. In fact, I have found that the velocity of change actually increases because A, people get more used to change, B, people start looking for more. So with that, I'm just going to open the floor, see if there's any questions that people would like to ask. Julian, I can only see the PowerPoint, so let me know if there's anything that comes up.
Yeah, no, in terms of questions, well, first of all, thanks for that comprehensive overview and spirited descriptions. In terms of questions, everything has been answered. There's one that was kind of lingering, and someone asked, how does mission control compare to Basecamp? I think maybe the first thing to maybe really point out there is we're native to Salesforce. That's really kind of a lot of the core benefit you're seeing here is being able to relate anything within your Salesforce to mission control to really have that single source of truth. I guess maybe Nick, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, Basecamp is a very good application for what it does. The thing that I like about Mission Control is you get that, and I think every time somebody says this, Mark Benioff gets a quarter, but you get that whole view of your clients. Not only from a project management perspective, say you're working with company X, you can see what the sales process was, you are able to link back and see all the information and then go into the project management side of it. From a project management side, I think the major differences between Basecamp and Mission Control is really their UI. Salesforce has a specific look and feel. Mission Control follows that. Basecamp, it's a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say angular, but that's not what it is. The UI is just different. The same core functionality is within both of them. My personal opinion, I like mission control better. That's why we use it internally, and that's why we help people use it. But no, Basecamp and mission control. Uh, the other thing I would say is that Basecamp focuses specifically on task management and project management. Mission control has a little bit more of a more strategic view that you can build into, such as the 7 layers of projects, being able to link that back to revenue recognition, invoicing, billing, status reports, and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Well, I guess with that being said, that brings us to time. I really appreciate you joining on today. If anyone has any questions, so look, we'll be sending a video recording of today's call. I'll also include Nick's contact information along with my own. If anyone has any questions, thoughts, ideas, curious to learn a little bit more about program management or mission control, please feel free to reach out to any one of us, or we're more than happy to bring you through this journey and help preach the gospel of mission control. So with that being said, I hope everyone has a great afternoon, evening, and good night.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.